It's flat Earth anyway. The sun's down.
Okay, so
Let's talk about your experience today, then.
yes, we're going to talk about this fellow Awake and Brave that I met recently, and I made a video about him the other day. And so we went out and we were engaged in conversation, just like we are on a constant basis. And we're talking about many facets, too many to mention, really, but some of them will come up during the course of my explanation.
Okay.
But basically, what he's about, he only drinks distilled water, and that is absolutely paramount in his cognition, that wherever he goes, he's got to have distilled water, because he reckons that the regular water, doesn't matter how pure they reckon it is, the mineral water, it's got negative minerals in it which
Right.
kill the body.
Right.
Because he says that what happens is, if you eat plants, then what plants do, they suck up all the nutrients, and they only use the positive live ones. And I went, well, I mean, minerals are not live. You know, mineral is like gold, aluminum, magnesium. That's what a mineral is. And so
Sure.
they're not live in it. So it is the plant that it gives life, and it gives life via its photosynthesis. It creates its energy from the sun via creating chlorophyll, and so then it transmutes the photons into energy, which is the plant, which is carbohydrate. And so anyway, that's on his the top of his list. And so the other things are that he's saying all the time is because, like, you know, you have to listen to a person's rhetoric, and his rhetoric that he's fighting. And currently he's got issues, like I said in the other video, since he's done these 150 ayahuasca ceremonies,
Sure.
then his dreams are like wearing 10 pairs of sunglasses, he says. He can't see anything. And so he's lost that part of his mind. And
But didn't you say in the video as well what dreams he actually has? They're not kind of, there's no light in them whatsoever. It's almost like, and does he feel like there's any eminent entity within that space, or does he fit nothing?
well, he's psychic attacks, and we're going to meet one more time. He's got another week, and so we'll meet one more time, and he's going to tell me this story that he finds it very, very difficult to go there, because I think it was so traumatizing to him. And every time he mentions, he sort of tiptoes on this subject, and then he's hesitant about it. And it's kind of like, if I'm going to tell you, I've got to tell you all the details. And so it really shook him up. But he reckoned he was followed back across the world via entities which made manifest in other beings and attacked him in his psyche. So this is kind of getting in the realms of what Scott from Ayahuasca Magic's talking about, because he had this sort of thing. He was always being...
You see, let me just put in there, Aaron, it's like when you actually go to one of these ceremonies, when you look at the shaman, he puts... he does certain things, rituals, doesn't he? When he's in that frame of mind, we can even get deeper where they used to put masks on and things like that, so that they knew that there was going into like a very strange territory. And then when they came back out, they would take the mask off, and then there would be the normal Joe, you know, they've got a wife and kids and whatever. It seems to me the Westerns are going over there, going on the trips, and then coming back, and they're all screwed up because they're bringing that world into this world. They're not realising this two. It's almost walking in two different worlds, and they're pulling it across, aren't they?
Well, yes. I mean, you've got one foot in the matrix, in this environment, this dimension, and another foot in the spiritual. And they don't work, do they?
No.
Evidently, because, okay, Scott seems to have come out of it now, but it took him about 2 years. And so he's carrying this weight, and he doesn't get emotive. He's on a very low level.
Right.
Now and again he'll have a smile, but that's about it. And you see how I express myself with nature, and I'm very animated and excited, and you can see that I've got a joy about me, and I'm immersing myself in the joy, and I'm appreciating it. He says that he's lost 85% of that, and he's now down to 15%. emotionally. And he considers that he doesn't have a deficit because he says he's got everything and more that anybody else has got. It's just that he doesn't get excited, or he doesn't get manipulated into feeling really negative or really positive. He's just on this plain sailing. And I said, well, look, I mean, from the perspective that I'm looking at and how I enjoy my life, I wouldn't want to swap that. There's no way on this earth would I want to go down to 15% from, say, like 100% of enjoyment for this world, because that isn't what this world's about. But he thinks it is. He thinks that it's all about this stoic business, and it's all about depriving yourself of everything that is remotely bad for you, and all you got to do is breathe air and drink water and this sort of thing. And live on your own in the fucking bushes somewhere, which is just a complete fantasy.
I mean, how can somebody like you said, yeah, it's okay, and he's got it in his subconscious now. We know it works. He's programmed his subconscious. If he hasn't got this distilled water, what could it be to his being? He's idolising, again, some substance. We know some people drink tap water and live to 90. So what he's trying to do is he's binding himself, he's cocooning himself. And it's like, you can say to him, if you walk down the high street, you're inhaling fucking carbon monoxide. I mean, it's almost like it's neurotic.
Yes, it is. But where do you draw the line? It's preposterous. And so you see, I think we have to have a certain level of acceptance if we're going to maintain our sanity, and if we're going to have a reasonable interaction. Because like you say, if you think like walking in the city, you're getting an excessive amount of radio waves, you're drinking or breathing an excessive amount of carbon dioxide and monoxide, and you mix in with negative people, and you can't buy these raw foods that people have grown from perfect soil in a perfect land. It's all bollocks. And I swear, I would think 90% of this food that they reckon is organic is a crock of shit, because it's just the same as like saying free-range chickens. Yeah. If they let the chicken out into a nasty, shitty gravel patch for 1 hour a day, then they consider it free-range. And for 23 hours of the day, they're cooped up in a pen just like the restaurant pool. This has been proven. They've had filming crews gone into these chicken processing places, and that's how they get over it. They put a picture on the front of a beautiful fluffy chicken, running around in the pastures and in the meadows. It's all bollocks. And so I think it's all bollocks about this organic food also.
So going back to this guy, I mean, so he's 85%, could you say that 85% saturated in fear and anxiety, or is he not like that?
No, I think it's a sound assessment. He's operating on fear. He's been terrified with this ayahuasca thing he's been through, and coming back with demons and all this sort of thing. And now he's on this path of purification. And I point out that the things that really fill me with joy, and it's just like watching a seagull, how he navigates through the air and the turbulences, and it's amazing just to do that, and it's so soothing and it's beautifying. You look at the sun reflecting on this, you look at the flower, you look at the waves lapping on
just look at a butterfly or something like that, you say, and then you can see that it's in front of you. The creation process is magical.
He can't see any of that. He can't see any of that.
Right, so but could he, like you say, you've not spoken to him long enough because it's a deep subject, but can you say that why did he go on to he hasn't told you why he needed to go on to these journeys, or you got something?
Well, he said he had a calling to go to Peru. And
150, what's this 150 trip thing? I mean, surely if you can't get what you can get out with under 10 or 5, surely what 150? I can't get my head around all this 150.
Exactly, I can't get my head around it. We had an amazing amount of information just from like one trip on psilocybin, and so it takes you an awful long time to assimilate that, because you go into a different world. So how can you possibly go into this different world every single day? Well, or 3 times a week. You go for 6-8 hours, and you're in this world where you got snakes and entities and all this. I don't think it's possible. I really don't know what is going on with these people that say they can.
So he's basically haunted, being tracked around the planet by by his own psyche, by his own shadow.
Yes.
And does he understand all that aspect of it? Does he understand it's his own shadow, or is he not?
No. He's in denial of that facet of it. He thinks it's attachments, and he seriously thinks that entities came to get him. Why? Because he was getting near the light. And I'm like, I didn't.
Well, no, I'm not denying that the fact that these entities do exist, but what I'm saying is, you know as well as me, if you think about what you bring about, so if he's thinking at that level, he's manifested these entities into his dimension. Like you said, if you go in there with some kind of a grip of the reins of the wild horses that we all hold, I mean, you're going to get a different experience. So he's got to get control of his psyche, because we're not denying that these things, they do exist, but he's opened the door to them. That's what he's got to get to his grips with. He's the one who's opened the door to him somehow.
And of course, that's what he's working on. He's working on trying to get his nocturnal vision back, his dream vision. And because he reckons he's got an attachment of a living entity in this part of the brain, which goes from the eye down into the reptilian brain. And he says this entity is attached there, and it blocks out, lots of stuff from the visual world. And so he says, like, normally the light and all the vision comes into the retina and it goes back to the visual cortex. He says it's been blocked. It's been intercepted by some sort of
like a parasite or something.
Parasite, demon or something between the retina and the visual cortex. And so it's very strange things to think about, isn't it? It really is strange. And who could say what veracity of truth? It's just something that he thinks. And so you can...
It's the imagination. So the imagination is reality. So you got to take it as... we can see that he's kind of, like you're saying to me, I mean, it's amazing he hasn't gone into the realms of falling into the realms of fucking schizophrenia or something like that. Sounding like it. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people would do.
Yeah.
Lose the path and slip into it. I mean, the only way I'd say he can get back to any kind of balance is, I said to Scott, you've got to go back to where it started. You've got to go back. If you went to that ceremony, you've got to go back to another ceremonial shaman to unlock what's been, to put back in the box what's come out.
Yeah.
That's the only way. You're not going to do it in the Western culture. No way.
And so he talks about the insiders, these people that know the real truth. And he talks about all the Illuminati. They don't know the real truth. They're being used by this people, entities, energy source, whatever it is that's manipulating the whole world. And he says that they're not malevolent. They are just putting all these obstacles in the way because they think, well, if they can't overcome the obstacles, then they're not worthy. It's kind of like that. And I'm like, well, let's have a look at it from this perspective then. A child is born into a parenting scheme whereby the parents are completely indoctrinated, and they instantly are going to indoctrinate the children. So it doesn't seem fair to me. It doesn't seem rational. And I wouldn't say it's a good thing. And if these entities, creatures, whatever they are, they want to absolve themselves from any wrongdoing, then that's one of the first things that they should do. They should allow the educational system to be changed, and we should be allowed to have psychedelic experiences and be taught about our consciousness and our values and all this. But we're not. We're suppressed from the absolute moment we come out the birth canal. And so therefore then, whatever is running this planet, they don't have any benevolence. It's all malevolent, because it's all about control and manipulation, suppression of pure consciousness. And so he wouldn't really have any of that. He just thinks, no, there's a way. And the further you go towards this truth, and then you can get there. And, he seems...
If that doesn't say to you after 150, I would say, like I said to you, 150, you should be, whatever's there, you've got through it. If it's there, if it is there, if it's like the what's that thing called, a fractal. If it's a fractal universe, I mean, there is no end to it. He just keeps on going through one roll after another roll after another roll.
Yeah. And I said to him, because he considers that he knows a great deal more than me, and what woke him up was 9/11, 2001, and so he's been on the journey since then. Okay, so he may have had more opportunity to acquire more knowledge, but I speak about many things that he's never even looked into. And so he speaks about things that I haven't looked into. And so all we're doing is we're coming from two different perspectives, because when I point out things of this natural world that I'm really excited about, then he cannot see it. And so I said to him, I said, well, look, as far as I'm concerned, if we're going to make any comparison against our standing in this evolutionary path that we're on of enlightenment, then it seems to me that I have the light within me because I'm full of light and energy and joy, and you have the darkness within you because you feel attacked, you feel suppressed, you feel that you've got to fight. I don't consider that I've got to fight anything. I'm free. And so therefore then, you see, what it was like, it's kind of like a dark energy and a light energy, and I'm expressing all of this stuff, and then he's coming on, yeah man, it's deeper, and nobody knows who they are, and nobody knows this and nobody knows that. And I said in the end, look, I'm not undermining what you're doing, but who are you then to think that you can get onto the same level as these creatures that have been dominating the world for eternity? I said, come on, man, look, I don't think there's anything per se to know as truth on this planet, because you think you're on the perfect true path. I think I'm on the perfect true path. And yet we're polarities apart. Who's right? Who's wrong? And so if we look at 7.5 billion people, then they've all got their way of perceiving everything.
That's right.
And
that's right.
we're never going to tell a Christian evangelist that God doesn't exist. They will crucify you, motherfucker. And so therefore then, what is your knowledge? It's only a belief system pertaining to you, just the same as everybody else's. Only if you believe in God and you pray to Jesus and that makes you happy, seems to me that they're winning, Paul.
It sounds to me like he's slipped into like a dimension of like the occult does. When they slip into that dimension, they can't get out. It's almost like a binding system within his being. And now he's obviously thinks that there's all these power points to go from. And like I say, if he looks at kind of Mark Passio or something like that, he doesn't talk about ayahuasca and stuff like that, but it's the same thing. He's getting caught into this kind of power trip. And you've got to ask the question, is it an ego trip or is it a self-empowerment trip? It sounds to me like you say, he's trying to get to this power point. For what reason? What happens when he gets to the light then? What does he think's going to happen?
Yeah, he thinks then that he will be free from this dimension and he can ascend to source and never come back. And I'm like, well, I don't mind. I could come back here 1,000 times if my experience has been like it has. And if every time you come back down here, you're learning how to do it better, well, fuck me. I must have been here 1,000,000 times then, because I consider that I've learned a reasonable amount enough about this world to make me happy. Which seems to be a difficult thing to do. And so on the basis of that, then, I don't want to walk around the world like you, hating every minute of it and punishing yourself and talking about all this deep and dark stuff that nobody knows this and nobody knows that. I'm like, mate, the whole universe is within our heads. We all know everything because we're all a part of consciousness. And so there's nothing that people don't know that you don't know. And so he doesn't meditate, you see. I said, if you meditated, then you will start to free your mind of all these negative energies and attachments and this, that, and the other, because you get into the source itself, that which you are trying to attain, only you're trying to attain it through another way. Well, and then he says like things like, well, all of these gurus, they're not enlightened. And I'm like, well, if you say that the real enlightened people, nobody knows who they are, where they are, or how they operate.
The key word is nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So we get to another level and they go, nobody knows because there's another level.
Yes.
Nobody knows because there's another level.
Yeah.
Nobody knows there's another level. And what he's got to realise is, if he looks deep into these scriptures of religion, they'll all say that you're in for a fall, because you'll not know, because it's a bit like, I was chatting with Chris earlier on, I said to him, imagine like looking at a load of Russian dolls on the table and asking them, who created you? And they can't speak back to you because there's nothing in there that's got any recognition of consciousness. I said, do you think whoever's created us have given us the actual tools to work it all out? They've not given us it, because it's the ultimate thing they're not going to give us, are they? It's like anything. It's kind of like leaving us in this perplexing loop of like the Mobius strip. You can't get out of it. So this guy is literally going to keep going around like the snake, the Ouroboros, keep eating himself every fucking day and rejuvenating in a different spectrum.
Yes,
he can't get out of it, mate.
No, and really wasting his time on this planet, which should have been spent with enjoying himself. And so he hasn't had any children, so he doesn't have that. And so therefore then he's not fulfilled any humanitarian purpose really on this planet, because he's not passed the baton of his genetics to take the human being forward.
Yeah.
He likes imparting information on a one-to-one basis like he was doing with me, and so maybe he thinks that's his cause or his purpose. But you're perfectly right when you know, I said to him, I said, look, people have been philosophizing and they've been dealing with magic for eternity. And I have never, ever heard of anybody that's ever said that they've found it and said, yeah, well, the people that find it, you don't know who they are. And I'm like, well, we can go on like this forever and ever and ever, can't we? You see, we can use our rational mind and application. We can look around us and we can see all these people in very, very high positions. No, it's not them. They don't know. And like, come on then. Well, who the fuck are you? You know, who the fuck are you that you think you are going to know? It doesn't make sense to me, mate. And I says, at the end of the day, do you suppose that this thing we actually existed in, which we're not existed in any case, it's all illusion? Do you think that the key to the door is going to be lying around somewhere for you to stumble upon? It just isn't. It just doesn't make sense to me. And if you look at all the information on the globe, I'm not sure whether anybody could ever make sense of it. I've never heard anybody make sense of it, Paul.
Well, about 15 years ago, Johnny Depp made a film. I can't remember what it's called. I don't know if it was the 13 Steps or the 15 Steps. And it was about where he got pulled into the occult. And what happened was, the film was saying every time he got to one step forward to understanding what was going on, what happened was, the next day there was another step created and another step created. It's almost like reality creates more steps.
Just like quantum mechanics.
Exactly. So what he was saying was, this film was based on a theory that these occultists work by, is that a case of the key to this power is you shouldn't have to say anything about it. If you're centered within your being, you don't need to say anything. You don't need to just go, oh, I can see this, I can see the archons, the fucking this, that, and the other, because you're centered in your own being. You just know it's there, and it's beyond words, Aaron. If the words are coming out, he's like miles to go, because he's having to express himself to you. But like you say, it seems to me, like you say, where's his next destination, other than being within his own psyche? Or is he in his own psyche anyway? You could probably spend a year with this person and he's still stuck in his head. I mean, it's dangerous shit with this ayahuasca.
Yes, and so he levels this at me because, you know, having watched my videos, he says, well, you know, what you do is you tell people you must know this and you must know that, and I know this and you don't know this, so you better know this, because if you know this, then you'll be higher up and this, that, and the other. He says that's all ego speaking. And I said, well, what's the purpose of our interaction now then? Because you're telling me stuff that I don't know, and you're saying to me that there's lots of things that I'm not aware of. And so basically, you're doing exactly the same as you say I am. And so, look, we're all doing it to whatever degree, because this is the programs that we're using. This human experience, this ego, this is what it does. And if anybody could absolve themselves of putting themselves on a pedestal from anybody else, then they shouldn't say a single word, even the Buddha. Because you see, what the Buddha did by promoting what his thoughts were, it was telling everybody else that they're not enlightened like he is. And so this is why they stuck him up on a pedestal and made him gold and all this business. You know, so it's all ego. Even the Buddha, even the super Buddha, then he was controlled by ego, telling everybody else, you know, or making inferences that they're not enlightened like him because they don't see what he sees. And so if you meditate, one day you'll see like I see. You see, it's all games, isn't it?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, and this guy you're talking about, it's a case of, did he have these ceremonies all in a space of a year or two then?
A year, yeah.
So he had many years. That's like one every near enough 2 days, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you're saying like 3 times a week.
So was he the same shaman all the time then?
Yeah.
Bloody hell, crikey. So, you know, at the end of the day, he's got to. Can he ever get out of it? You know, to me, even if Scott's only had 10, and look at what it caused them. I don't think you're going to get out of 150 fucking ceremony.
Yeah, no, and if you look at it, like Graham Hancock, he says he reckons he's had over 200 experiences. Well, I said to you on one occasion, well, look at him. Look how he speaks and look at his body and look how he's aging, the same as everybody else. What has he gotten from it? He writes books that the vast majority of people discount because most of it isn't based on absolute knowledge. It's only based on hearsay. And so... what has
life's a gig, isn't it? At the end of the day, like you said, we're all going down the same fucking hole at the end of it. And it's like you say, we're coming here just constantly thinking the threat of like the dark shadow of hell going to drag you down there at any given moment. Like this guy, something is amiss with that kind of going for that kind of ceremony. To me, there should be a warning sign with it, a fucking health warning, because it's not meant to then come back here because it doesn't fit in. I mean, you know, I reckon there's a lot of these shamans appearing in London doing ceremonies in these rich people's houses.
Right.
No fucking training, this, that, and the other. So we asked the question, will this guy ever get back? And there's a guy who was on Scott channel about 2 years ago. I don't know whether you watched. I think you watched it, and he was.
I did, yeah, because you.
He had loads of guns, didn't he? And this, that, and the other. He said, I got rid of all my guns. He said, I didn't want to kill anybody. This, that, and the other. And then I watched one of his videos about 6 months ago, and he was going, I want to shoot all these fucking shamans, this, that, and the other. He said, they're all like lying, this, that, and the other scumbags. They've screwed my head up. I can't see straight anymore. And he was so angry, and he said, I ain't going to be on YouTube. Press the button, he's just gone. You know, so where he's gone, we don't know. And it's kind of, it left him despondent, you see.
Yeah, this is the danger. And you see, there's one of our viewers who says he's done 200 DMT trips. And when I speak to him, I can't see that. No disrespect to him. Like another one the viewers that reckons they've done something similar like that. I can't see. I can't see.
I understand what you're saying. You can't see it, you can't feel it.
No, and there's no ascended master coming over to me. They're just confused people that know less than I do, even though they've had all this massive experience on, you know, the psychedelics. Well, what have you got from it, man? You know, are you absolutely living in bliss? No, you're not. And what has it gained? Has it made you more articulate? Has it made you more intelligent? Has it opened your mind up? No, it's not. So really, these psychedelics, they can show you some fun stuff, but as far as I can see, Paul, it's just like, I wouldn't put it any different really to go into a movie. If you was like an Indian in the Amazon jungle and you went to a movie, that would blow your fucking mind, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
And so there's loads of things that blow their minds. Well, they do every day that don't blow their minds. You know, taking these psychedelics or whatever, like the shamans in the Amazonian jungle, the Peru. And so really, it's just, if you step out of your culture into another culture, when I went to live in Africa, that blew my mind. That proper blew my fucking mind. That was a paradigm shift, man. I'm telling you. That shook me up like nothing else could ever shut me up. Like the baddest trip on this planet. That's what that did for me. And so...
Well, like you say, from the perspective of going into that dimension, going into that vibration, going into that kind of their culture, it's their rules, isn't it? Even though you can't implement your rules on their vibrational level that's been there thousands of years, it's set in stone. It just does what it does. It's almost like a metronome, isn't it? It just rocks away at its own pace and does what it's doing. And like you said, you go there and try and change it, you're in fucking trouble.
Yeah, and so what this guy thought. He's looked at my videos and he said, okay, you know, Aaron, he's doing this and he's doing that. And so he felt an urgency to talk to me. He said, there's lots to talk about. And I think he was hoping that, you know, I would have more of an allegiance with his thoughts. But what I've noticed...
Well, you know, if you go in allegiance with his thoughts, you know as well as me how it works. You can lose a percentage of your energy in a transference.
Yeah, you know? And so, you know, what's made manifest over this last afternoon, and almost towards the end, I upset him because I'm saying things like, you know, who do you really suppose you are? Who does anybody suppose they are? That can know the nature of all things, like the super high ones. Oh, come on, man. Are we not just inventing the super because we just don't, you know, understand what's going on? You know, it seems to me that it could just be that the psychopathic narcissists up there, and they like control, and they've been passing it down just like anybody has, like kings and queens and all this. This is all they do. And so all they do then, they look over the globe and think, well, how can we fucking suppress these? There's getting too many. We're starting to get scared. We need to take more and more of their power away. It could very well just be that. Okay, so when you look into all these demons and energies and that, well, there could be something to do with that as well. Look, I think there's everything involved, because this is the nature of the universe. Everything is involved. Everything is in consciousness. And so, of course, it's all going to play a part in it, isn't it? And this is why we can never find any definitive truth, because it's like, who shot Kennedy? Loads of people wanted to shoot Kennedy.
That's right. I mean, you've got to look at it like he's experienced it, and he will never. I don't think he's going to get out of it in any time soon. It might take him 10 years. How old is he then? 30 something?
45.
45. What he's going to do, he's going to, like you know as well as me, he's going to look at psychology to understand the mechanics of how these shamans work, because it's all there in a different way. It's kind of, they go inside like a mechanic. They'll go inside, they'll put this stuff inside your body, go around your body, you can open your psyche up, and then all you're going to do is get, like you say, replays of shadow aspects, until he actually admits, what he's got to admit to somebody along his path is there's a core fracture in his psyche, and this has been opened up, and it's so much is feeding on it. So there's something within him that he's not saying to tell you probably, and if he doesn't let it out, it's going to keep eating away at him. It could be anything. It could have been. You know what happens to kids in schools and stuff like that. You don't fucking know, Aaron, what's happened to him in the past, and what he's done is he's gone through all these ayahuasca to exercise something.
Yes. Yeah. Because nobody in their right mind, unless pure desperation, would put themselves through that level of anxiety and trauma. There's no two ways that you could say that these psychedelics don't cause you anxiety. They cause you massive anxiety, and they cause you massive concern when you come back to this reality, and you can't adjust to it straight away because you're just in a different world. And so to do this 3 times a week, for say like it's that 18 or 20 hours every single week, that's going to fry your mind. So what I said to him in the end, and you're perfectly right, again, about the psychology, because it seems to me that I mentioned to him, had he heard of Carl Jung, who you know, so he hadn't read any Freud, so he doesn't know his own mind. He thinks he's on another path, and he's done these ayahuasca, and this is the path, and I've studied this really deep esoteric, and we can't talk about it. It's all super top secret and all this sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. But as far as I'm concerned, then looking around, I think that if anybody really wants to get some level on what this world is, then they look at inside here. I said it's all inside here, because all we're doing is projecting the stuff that's outside there. And so if you know what's going on inside here, I said to him, I said, look, the reason why whatever you're saying to me, you're wanting to impress upon me that there is one way to the truth. I said, first of all, I don't think there's any truth. And secondly, most definitely, there's not only one way, because how can there be one way that 7.5 billion people can follow? Because we've all got our own way. And so therefore, I said, I guarantee that whatever it is that is driving you stemmed from the first 5 years in your childhood. And yeah. I know this absolutely to be true, and you don't sound like you're aware of it, but I know that all of my stuff stems from my first 5 years and everybody else that I've ever met. And you can take all the mysticism and all the spooks and all the monsters out of the equation, but you look at your mind, you will create them all yourself. You don't ever have to encounter them out there. They're all in here. God's in here, the devil's in here, all the demons are in here, all the boogeymen are in here. And so he's going on this 40-day fast at some stage. And I said, okay, look, as far as I can see from this 40-day fast that Jesus supposedly have done, and it seems like it's an archetypal type journey that you go on, and what happens is your body becomes under such stress, it becomes terrified. It starts to hallucinate. The ego is fighting for its life because it wants to eat. It wants to feed this thing because it's dying. And so therefore, you're going to have very strange stuff going on inside your mind. And I said, and what you're going to encounter along the way is all the boogeyman which have been suppressed within your mind. You're going to be confronting all your shadow aspects on a day-to-day basis. This is why, in my estimation, it is said in the Bible that when Jesus was on his 40 days and 40 nights, he encountered Satan himself. Satan was himself.
Of course, that's what it is.
We're all going to encounter Satan ourselves if we put our body through such duress that it considers it's dying, because it's going to try absolutely fucking everything to stay alive. And so therefore, it's going to be terrifying you to stop doing it.
Yeah, and you, like you said, of all the things he wants to go on, it's like getting another 40-day of punishment. What is he punishing? What the fuck's he punishing? I don't...
Purification. I said, well,
no.
Look, as far as I've learnt in the past, when these IRA hunger strikers have gone on hunger strike, if they go past about 50 days, then there's irreparable damage that comes about, i.e. blindness and lots of other stuff that goes on in the body. If you last over 50 days, then about 72 days, the chances are you're going to die. So there's a very, very small margin of time relatively over and above this 40 days. If you're not a very, very strong person, 40 days will probably kill you.
Exactly. And you've got to have the right frame of mind to go in there to hold the ground. And it seems to me, with him doing this, he feels like he's getting more and more. Really, what you're telling me, it's almost like he's slowly killing himself. He's going to get the light he wants if he don't careful, because that's what he's some wish fulfillment, isn't it? It's a slow, punishing journey on a slow fucking going coach towards the improvable light, which is only to be experienced through your extinguished life. And he's got to be fucking careful, you know. And how can you actually, like you say, you could spend 1,000 hours with him. You cannot know the person 100%. Like you said, all it takes is him not to say one thing about the drivers in his mind, and you literally lost it. And he needs to not go on something like that. He needs to be going, like you say, he's in a sunshine area now, whereas in Portugal. Where's he going for this fasting then? In Spain?
Well, he's no idea that it's just something that he's set himself to do, and he's terrified to do it, of course, because it's going to be an absolutely horrendous experience, but it's something that he's compelled to do. So somewhere within his psyche, there's this compulsion to punish the self to such a degree. Look, if Jesus ever did it, Jesus was the Son of God. You know,
as we talk on Easter Sunday, yeah, go on.
Yeah. So and therefore, then, you know, he probably had a bit more gumption about him than the average Joe, or even the most determined. But
look, Aaron, look at it this way. Look, you go into a forest. Some of the berries on trees and things on trees are edible, and some of them are not edible. Through the history of humanity, they've left us bits of information not to eat that and to eat that. And it's like this ayahuasca thing. Nobody knew about it 20 years ago. But now the information's coming out, it's warning you. They're leaving you trails of information, the breadcrumbs. It can fuck you up. Be very careful. Take notice of the forerunners before you. But nobody's doing it. And this is the problem. They're not taking notice of the signs, the warnings.
I think one of the prerequisites to taking psychedelics really should be a good 5 years self-study. And that is, obviously, it's via meditation and it's via studying psychology. Because you've got to have some sort of idea of what's going on inside here. You've got to have some sort of idea of all the facets that are going to come about. And so I said to him, I said, look, when you look at the energies that we've got within us, and you're fighting this and you're fighting that, you are actually fighting actual entities. Because when you starve your body of, say, like something that it's been used to and it craves, i.e. Cigarettes, alcohol, heroin, or any of these strong painkillers, or sugar or chocolate, anything like this, there's certain microbes within your body, and if there's then, like, say, like 10 billion particular microbes, in my estimation, Paul, that's an entity. It's an energy of its own. It strives for one thing. It craves this particular substance, and so when you don't give it, it's going to be going, oi, oi.
That's exactly right. I read an audio book. I sent it to you ages ago. It's about 8 hours, and this guy called Bloom, his surname's Bloom. And what he's saying is, he said, within our system, all of a sudden you be given scarcity of food and scarcity of water, and these actions start kicking in that we're not even aware of. It's almost like we turn into like an hive, like almost like joined together as these armies and hives just to hunt for food. And these things are not even active as we understand it when you can go to a corner shop. But like you said, you've been in Africa, what it's like when all of a sudden you get like more scarce as things get less scarce. Your mind thinks in different levels, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And what he's saying is, we are this walking entity, and once even this stuff in our stomachs that actually it's telling us, using our brain to send the actual stuff down. It could be sugar, could be anything, and we're literally think, oh, I want some sugar. Well, is it you that wants the sugar, or is it fucking something that's kind of within your stomach?
Yes, absolutely. It's something within your body. And when you live in a realm of plenty, then you are providing the substance for their addiction. As soon as this stuff starts to become scarce, yourself, Paul, when some people get hungry, they get angry straight away. They become a different person. They're aggressive and this, that, and the other. One of my mates down the gym, one of the instructors there, he has to eat every 3 or 4 hours. Otherwise, he says he gets really angry. And he goes like this. And all of a sudden, you saw an expression of what comes out just because it doesn't get that sugar, because it's the carbohydrate that it is needing. So he's got a sugar monster in there. Can you imagine? If he, was in a situation where he couldn't eat for 3 days, he might kill somebody.
This is the thing, isn't it? This is what people don't understand. We think there's so many things at play. It's not just to get out, like I say, going towards the light or the spiritual development. There's the context of this being, this machine that's working along in this paradigm. And we've got to understand it's all kind of part and parcel of the same thing. So yeah, it's complex, but also. We're not, like you say, they don't know the dormant state. There was a thing in our Ireland once, Northern Ireland. These 3 soldiers was undercover, and they was on the way back from the barracks, and these Irish guys started attacking them, and it was being filmed. Them big old cameras, it was filming them. And then when they interviewed these guys afterwards, 2 of the soldiers was killed. These guys didn't recognise themselves in this frenzy, killing the soldiers.
Right.
They said, I don't recognise. Oh, it was me. Oh yeah, it's me on camera. What was it? It was like almost like a possessive frenzy that they went into, like a almost kind of crowd mentality, like a football crowd, isn't it? Like
I hypnosis, because of course that's what they'd be absorbing from their terrorism community, that to kill the Brit, and it's kill these Brits bastards and this, that, and the other. They're so full of hate, and so when they come to put it into practice, they go into some sort of a fucking demonic frenzy of bloodletting.
It's almost like that energy's waiting to be channeled, and then all of a sudden this energy comes into this pack, and then it dissipates.
And then of course when that energy's gone, you come back to another variety of a person within you that doesn't recognize that one, because it's a different mindset. It's like Ted Bundy, people like that. They didn't recognize that the person wanted to take these lives, strangle innocent women like that. But it was just something that got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until it was satiated. Another demonic craving.
Yeah.
So what did I get out of it when I make this assessment? Well, what I got out of it is that in this past 5 years, what I've been doing isn't necessarily being right, in that because what I know from listening to people, what everybody knows, we've all got our way. You see, if we were susceptible to all the things everybody said, then we'd be taking on board everybody's stuff, and we couldn't comply with all the information. So therefore, something within us has to draw the line somewhere. And this something is the ego. And it says, I don't recognize that information. I can't go with that information. Unless, of course, your cognizant mind absorbs it in slowly, reasonably, rationally, and lets it settle, and then asks itself, can I use that information? Would that information benefit me? Okay, maybe a little bit of this would, maybe a little bit that would. And of course, this is what we do, slowly, slowly, slowly.
Well, maybe at night when you're dreaming, it's sorting itself out. The information you've got during the day, it's going like that. I'll probably only keep 5% of it. The rest of it's gone.
And so if you look then at our lives, Paul, let's just say since we've known each other over this last 2 years, all the information that we've absorbed and all the knowledge that we've become privy to, we are, for all intents and purposes, still exactly the same people. We've not led a different life. We've not raised up or gone down in the echelons of society, because if say like after 2 years of learning all this, amazing information, all of a sudden, if you were 10 rungs up on the ladder and you were being chauffeured around in a limousine and you was, whining and dining with bigwigs, you can say, well, fuck me. He only did study on the internet for 2 years, and it increased something within here, which enabled him to become another person, to live another life. It doesn't. It keeps us exactly the same, only what's happening is we're just getting more and more information. And I really, I don't know whether there's any purpose or benefit to it. For the greater part, I really don't know. You see, I look at myself and I can I can attribute my disposition currently, Paul, through my meditation. But I don't know, because I don't know what I would have been like without meditation.
No, this information thing, let's just get something sorted out there. It's like all this stuff we've gathered, we can look at something now and go like, as before probably was going, I'll have to look at that for a few hours, but you can see it now instantaneously. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but how has it changed our lives?
How's it changed our lives? Who knows? Because even 5 years is nothing, is it? Nowhere it's going to change. It probably hasn't evolved into that.
We're no richer, Paul. Really, we've got no more friends. We're no nearer to acquiring our greatest wealth, unless we consider that our greatest wealth is knowledge. But you see, we have to transmute this knowledge into something, then, don't we? And if we can...
Exactly, this is knowing within your own psyche and your own being when that time is right. You'll feel it rising up, and it will happen. It's kind of, how do you know? How do you know in a year where you're going to be? Because what happens is, it's like you said, what have you learned from it all? It's like a seed under the ground. How do you know until it comes out of the ground what tree it's going to produce? You can't dispel it as if nothing's happened. because
let me interject here, because this is a good point, because what this guy says, he says, I see in you that you've got some sort of doubt or self-doubt. And I says, well, how do you want to explain that? And so he started to try to explain it, but then diverted. And so if I look at that, then where any doubt stems from, in my experience, is the fact that nothing can be known. We think stuff can be known, and we can read this book, and we can read that book, and we can read another book, and then we can read another book that contradicts that book, and another 5 books that contradict that book. And so what really can be known? The only thing that can be seen of some benefit is that you choose over and above something else, one particular verse from one book and one particular verse from another book. And then you say to yourself, I'm learning, I'm getting wiser. When in actual fact, you're not. All you're doing is just choosing different stuff from different people. And so at the end of the day, we're all going to the same freaking place, and you can be a drinker and a smoker all your life and live to be 90 years old, whereas somebody that's never drank and smoked can die at 40 from cancer. This is how the world is. And so this is my great skepticism, and this is why then there's a certain doubt. But one thing I don't have any doubt about is how I look at this world, feel a part of the natural world, and enjoy the world. That feels to me absolutely right. I don't have any shadow of a doubt about it, Paul, because what it does is a direct reflection of me, i.e. when the sun shines on me, I'm shining on the fucking sun. That's how it is. I am the sun. I am it. When I look at a butterfly and it's flapping its wings, I'm flapping my wings. And that's exactly how it is. And so when you know this and when you feel this and it feels so right, therefore you've gained something.
Exactly. Exactly. So what oh, sorry, you carry on.
But no knowledge. I don't think no knowledge gave me this, Paul. I think what gave me this is having the ability to be free and the time to look at it and feel it. And that is because I earned enough money to emancipate myself for a few years from the stresses of the fucking ego. And so all the knowledge in the world and all this, you see, loads of people, what they say is when they've got thinking minds, they say they don't read anybody else's information because they don't want other people's information infiltrating, polluting. You see, what happens is when you absorb all this information, you forget where it comes from. And then you think, oh, I came up with that. Or
it's echo, isn't it?
It's an echo. And so therefore, then, if you don't read a single book, and if you just like contemplate under a tree like the Buddha, then that's when you're going to get the greatest knowledge, because it's all in here, and you're going to be thinking. You're going to be discerning everything. And when your mind is calm, you observe the world and you notice and you see things so very, very clear.
So when you did the video with you and Patrick and Chris, and at the end of the video you said what you got from it, you felt good after the conversation.
Yes.
What you've got to understand is it's giving us something, isn't it? What we're doing, it's kind of what we're doing is tilling the land of information. We're just turning it over and like turning the diamond, as we say.
Well, I don't think that the information that we're talking about has got anything to do with it, you see, because if like you have a lover, for instance, and you're not talking about anything, or if there's a woman that you just like being around, but she's married, when you're with her, you feel good. That's what it is, Paul. It's just the human interaction that we need, because that's what we are. We're not separate. And so this is the height of my human interaction. I don't have anybody hardly ever. And so when I have a conversation with somebody that can speak my language, and
that's what I'm saying to you. So yeah, are we gaining anything from it? No, we're just jousting and spinning around bits of words and sentences and this, that, and the other. I mean, it's like I was watching something the other day, and this guy said, like you said, he got to this point where he said, all these years I've been exploring these different avenues, what have I got from it? And what he said he got from it was the fact that he knew that this paradigm, this dimension, is literally a kind of puzzle, and it's kind of like a mechanism of words and numbers. So he said all it comes down to is you can go back in there and fiddle around these numbers and numbers and words and create your reality, because that's what it is. It's a structural paradigm to create within.
Yes.
So it says you can sit on your own, away from everybody, and you've not learned anything. So he said the drawback is with it, you've got to go back in there, and then you can then other people, the more knowledge you get, they'll class you as a manipulator, even though you're not, because it comes down to the fact that if you know more knowledge than somebody else, it's a natural behavioural pattern from an human being saying, well, you're manipulating that person, but that person is dormantly asleep. You're not manipulating them. All you're doing is kind of shaping them into the form. There'll be no other thing. There'll be just, like you said, what NPC, non-player character situation. So what do you do? You know, so there is something to be gleaned from it, but it lays into the realms of fuzzy logic. You know, it depends what you want to do with it. It really comes down to that. If you want to be, like you said, if you want to kind of saturate yourself in nature and not have a lot to do with humanity, you've got that. Or if you want to go back into the dimension and like play, what can you say? Play the actual roulette table of life with a structure, you can do it. You know, so that it all comes down to what you want from it. But with that, Aaron, it's a case of if you did that again, went back into the world and turned the roulette wheel, what you could learn from this experience is that you can never ever, it can never turn on you again, can it? Because you're that far advanced that you can see all the traps and, you know.
Yes, and so then, if we equate this to like the incarnation theory, whereby we've come down here to learn, we've come down here to step up one more rung on the ladder. So we don't, it's one less time that we've got to come back here, because lots of people talk about, Dolores Cannon. I was listening to...
yeah, you sent me the video across, I didn't watch it.
Yeah, and so Patrick sent me this, and so basically... what she's saying is that if you have a life experience and you don't learn anything from it, you don't progress, then I'm sorry to say, but you're coming back. It's a bit like if you go to jail for a misdemeanor and you don't learn your lesson in jail, you're going back. And that's just how it is. And so maybe then that when we come back, we're coming back as a little bit more of an ascending being, and we are going to live maybe a little bit more of a better life, because we don't need to experience the horrendous experiences that we had, your near-death experience, and all the traumatic things that I've experienced in my life.
I just thought something. It's a bit like an acorn tree. When it sheds its acorns, there's only so many of them that grow. There's loads of them that just don't. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, and then you get asked the question: was it its destiny? Every fourth time that acorn in its genetic point on that branch, it's got its chance now. So it's the same thing, isn't it? You got to it's a ratio game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as like the insemination of the female species. There's millions of sperm all vying and racing the human race, and yet only one of them gets there first. And so it is 1 in a million or billion or something of this nature when you look at statistics from like that. And you see, with all the oak trees that we've been in the presence of with all of our walks, how many times have we found a small sibling oak tree growing under the existing one?
Not many.
Not many, if any. I can't recall one, because I've always pondered. I've always said, "Hang on, how does this work?" The oak tree creates these thousands of acorns every year. You would think that the oak tree would be inundated with baby oaks growing underneath it, but there isn't a single one. So how does it work?
Well, yes. It sounds similar to reincarnation, doesn't it? It's almost a case of if someone gets a strong ground, it then can reproduce its own kind, and if it doesn't produce its own kind. So there's some again, the snake, the Ouroboros, the snake eating itself.
It's incredible circumstances, incredible numbers, and if you look at evolution, how that theory is supposed to work with the genetic mutations, it's 1 in a gazillion, and so it's 1 in a gazillion mutations that actually takes footing, and so this is what it seems to be like, and it's 1 in a gazillion that the scientists reckon that we're here because what's the chances of this life with consciousness and this tiny world in the sun, the Goldilocks syndrome? What's the chance in that? They reckon it's so incredibly tiny that it is in actual fact a miracle. And so everything seems so miraculous.
Well, it's like an intelligent design. It's got to be, hasn't it? I know that. What anybody ever says, well, the fucking world's round, flat, or whatever, pancake shape, the intelligent design's there, but we never know where that intelligent design comes from because it's far beyond even our comprehension. Even if you put all our brains together, 8.5 billion, we'll never be able to solve it. It's unsolvable.
That's right. And so what I said to this guy today, I said, look, it's a noble endeavour, to be fair, what you're on. And if you want to suffer all that level of punishment when you could have been enjoy yourself, then, okay, that's your prerogative. But the way I see it is if you look down there, one of those grains of sand, it's like one of those grains of sand trying to know the world. Or the universe, indeed, because, comparatively, there's not a lot of difference in the size. And so could that grain of sand ever know the nature of the universe? Of course not. So why do you think you can? Just because you share consciousness, then you see, I said this is the biggest downfall of mankind, and it's what causes the greatest pain, because we have enough information to be able to ask questions, but we don't have the facility to be able to answer them. And so all we do is we go through this life, we've got a million gazillion questions, and the only answers we've got are those that we fucking invent, because they ain't truth.
Well, everything's an invention from cradle to grave. Like you said, it's inevitable that one day we'll be extinguished. So all we're doing is like looking inside of a circus, all the different colours going up and down and round and round. That's what it is. And there's no, like you say, there's no spirit. There is spiritual growth to be had, but again, underneath everything else, it's a very, very deep, dark place to find it all. Because, especially as Westerners, because we've been, like you said, we're straight out of the birth canal and we're under the thumb of the control system. We're not born in a jungle where everything's like a natural vibrational level. We're born into a concrete jungle.
Yeah, we're born into the prison planet, and where this energy has been prevailing and dominant for thousands of years. So let me ask you this then, to get to finalising this, because Patrick should be with us shortly, and then we can talk about the flat Earth. In my estimation, what this thing is about, it isn't about purifying the body and losing the ego and sitting under a tree and being in consciousness every single second of the day. Look, it's the playground. You don't go to Alton Towers to sit on a chair in meditation, do you? You go to Alton Towers to go on all the fucking rides. And so that's what I think this world is about. You come here to experience, and you sample as much stuff as you possibly can, and you enjoy it as much as you possibly can. That's what I think it's about. What do you think?
That's part of it. But part of it, again, like you say, you've got to have the other aspect of it. Like you say, if you meditate an hour or two a day and you're happy within that space, and if you're happy just with the simple things in life, yeah, fair dues. If you feel happy within that space, it might be a very mundane thing like gardening or anything like that. If that gives you soul, food for your soul, what more can you ask for? Like you said, to experience it, to actually go from one end of the earth to the other, some people just don't want to do that. So it's not within their operating system to do that, Aaron. But what we've got to consider the fact is that if that's the case, why is it after all these kind of reincarnational loops, we still ain't got the message? We still ain't got the message yet. Why aren't we actually at the rocks and kind of seeing the lighthouse? Why is it we keep going in circular motions, like we keep smashing ourselves up?
And it seems to me that this could just be another one of the lies that we've been told as well. I mean, who started coining this reincarnation business? It could just be just another fantasy, just as everything else is. Just like God's a fantasy, like Allah's a fantasy, like life after death, is a fantasy. Nobody knows, because nobody has actually really died long enough to be there. It could still be some sort of brain activity going on. It could just be some sort of fucking trip that we have. You know, if somebody is died and then comes back to life, say like after a week or something like this, and then they can absolutely convey, you know, in the greatest clarity and detail what actually happened, then, but even then, who's going to accept that? Because, you know, when we're looking for truth, then what we have to also take into consideration, do our minds have the capacity for truth? You know, because
there isn't any truth.
Well, no, there's no truth. So therefore, there absolutely isn't. It's only a subjective.
We're the only thing on the planet who's coined the word truth. There's nothing else says the word, is there?
No, and so what I'm saying is everything is a concept. It's all concepts. We've created the concepts, and then, but the thing is about it, the ridiculous thing about it is that even though many of us know that they're just concepts, and the quantum physicists know that it's all concepts, and it's all math, and it's all language, and yet they still absolutely believe in it. And so this is the paradoxical nature of it, because it seems so real, and it can be painful, and it can be joyous, and all sorts of things. But you've not answered the question. What do you think it's about ultimately?
I think it's about, obviously through the experience I've had, I know for a fact that this is, what can we put this as? This is just a layer or a level of existence. I believe that when we obviously kind of leave here, when we basically not existing anymore, then we'll get the answer. Yeah, it's not going to be some guy sat there in a chair going, you know what, you've done this, you've done that. But it's in my soul and in my being, I know for a fact this is like a university. It's like a university of learning, a university of understanding what it is to be in existence. The experiences you go through, like I said to you, with what you went through as a child and I went through, it puts you outside of it to look back at how the mechanisms of how this system works. But could we carry on with the same thing for another 20, 30 years and get any further on with it? No, we can't, because how much more can you learn? So all I can say is, Aaron, all I've said in my heart is it's a university of learning. For what? I haven't got a clue. I just do not know.
And so one of the other videos I was listening to, Dolores Cannon, this morning, was something along the lines of that, you know, we are reincarnated consciousness, and we come back as absolutely everything. We can spend a time as a buttercup or as a spider or whatever, because consciousness wants to experience itself. And so this is something that's been bandied around for a long time. Consciousness is having an experience. And so if we then you see, we detach ourselves from this, because this is just one of the gazillion experiences that consciousness is having. This is of no consequence. And so stop thinking about this as the experiencer, because this isn't the experiencer. The experiencer is the whole, and it's consciousness. And so when you go back to source, you go back to yourself. And so then if you splinter off facets into a spider, into an ant, into a blade of grass and all this sort of thing, then if that's what it's about, then I don't see that there's any purpose whatsoever in acquiring any information, because the information doesn't pertain to this. It doesn't pertain to this brain. It doesn't pertain to this experience. It pertains to consciousness. And when this body dies, consciousness goes, thank you very much, Aaron body, you know, and then
that's about it. That's really what it is. It's literally all we literally are. It is again, free will comes into play, doesn't it? Have we got free will, or are we just kind of an aspect of the whole? And that's what I think we are. We can con ourselves and feel, you know, put things in our minds to say you have, but it's only to a degree. We've always said this.
Yes, and so therefore, then, if you look at it like that, then you can be forgiven for thinking then it doesn't matter what you do, because whatever you do, you are source, and you're going back to source, and the experience that you have had, or the experience that consciousness has had via your body, has been of value to it. And it isn't a value to us, because we don't exist. We're just a figment of our own imagination, you see. It's like a gazillion ants. I've said a gazillion about gazillion times in this video, so there must be something in that.
2 gazillions.
Yeah, if you look at all the ants then, what's their purpose? All these ants all over the place, do they have any value individually, or do they only have a value collectively?
it's a collective thing. Like say, an ant watcher can see more than the globetrotter. They've been the same for a million years. They worked out that they got to a certain position and have gone, right, we don't need to evolve anymore. This works perfect. We'll carry on. We'll carry on. We'll carry on.
Yeah.
We'll carry on.
So you just answered it there then, Paul, because I was going to give you a couple of analogies. Say like, is one single microbe on sitting on your eyelash of any benefit to the world? No, it works as an organism, and it works as an entity itself, in doing whatever it does, procreating, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and protecting itself, this and the other. It's no different to the human species. It's no different to a flock of pigeons. It's no different to any other creature on this planet. All we've come to do is to allow this selfish gene to keep procreating for the benefit of what? To benefit from something that's benefiting from seeing how we progress.
Maybe the earth has just invented us to be its gardener. That's all we're invented for. We don't know. Maybe we are from the soil of the earth, so who fucking knows? And
this is it. Who knows? And again, so we've gone round and round in all different sorts of convoluted circles and everything, and it's been entertaining. But that's all. I mean, what have we got from it? Are we any closer to the light? I'm not. And so Irich just sent me a post saying they're back now. So Patrick will be joining us. So what I want to do is I'm going to send him a message and I'm going to put the kettle on. So 5-minute break. And,
what are you going to connect up then? Just send me the message.
Which is best for you? The email.
Send an email, then I can get that because there's a number at the bottom. Then I can link back to you.
Yeah, I'll do that then.
Okay, see you in a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay, bye.